Here are some of the biggest mistakes you want to avoid during your immigration interview. The immigration interview, whether it's with USCIS or with a consulate abroad, is one of the most critical parts of your immigration process. And there are certain mistakes that can really jeopardize your application. So in this video, I want to cover some of the most important mistakes to avoid during your immigration interview. The first mistake that I want to cover is going into your interview unprepared. You do not want to do this. And when I say going into your immigration interview unprepared, what I mean is several things. One is you should be familiar with how the process is going to unfold during the immigration interview. You should understand what types of questions are going to be asked of you. You should have familiarity with your case so that you can answer those questions. You should know where you need to go for the interview, what time you're supposed to arrive, and you should be prepared with all of this information. If you're not prepared, you're likely going to go into the interview with a sense of fear or anxiety, and it will show. Also, if you don't have answers available for basic questions about your case, that could also negatively impact your application. So tip number one is to be prepared for your immigration interview. Understand where you need to go, what types of questions are going to be asked of you, and have a general understanding of your case so that you can answer those questions. Another important point about being prepared, if you show up to your immigration interview unprepared, it may indicate to the immigration officer that this is just not that important to you. And you don't want to convey that message to the person that's ultimately deciding your case. Now, mistake number two is an aspect of mistake number one, but it's so important that I wanted to cover it as its own separate mistake to avoid. And that is not bringing the correct documentation with you to the immigration interview. Now, depending on your particular case type and the setting of your immigration interview, whether it's with USCIS or at a consulate abroad, you want to make sure to bring the correct documentation with you. If you do not bring the correct documentation with you, it may result in having your interview rescheduled or potentially worse. So make sure that you know which documents you need to bring with you to the interview and that you actually bring them on the day of your interview. The next mistake that I want to mention is lying. Now, this is incredibly important to know. Oftentimes, people might think that there's an aspect of their case that's a little bit weak and that it would just be easier to lie. And I'm here to tell you that is absolutely not the case. Lying has the potential to harm your immigration case far worse than if you were to just tell the truth. And here's one example of why. If you lie and the immigration officer determines that you're lying, then you can be found to have misrepresented that information, which can result in an immigration bar and actually not only result in a denial of your current immigration case, but it could potentially prevent you from getting approved for immigration benefits in the future. So tip number three is do not lie in your immigration interview. And that brings me right into tip number four. Tip number four is do not guess. Sometimes an immigration officer may ask you a question, you might not know the answer, and you might feel compelled to just give them an answer for the sake of answering. Not necessarily that you're lying, but you might be guessing. Here's the issue. If you guess and it turns out that your guess is incorrect, then the immigration officer might suspect that you're actually lying. It could end up harming your case. Similar to example number three of do not lie, the act of guessing can similarly harm you potentially. So it's best not to guess. If you do not know the answer to something, you can let the immigration officer know that you don't know. Now, the fifth mistake that I want to mention in this video is displaying a negative attitude. When you're applying for a visa or when you're applying for immigration benefits through USCIS, you are seeking a benefit. So that is a benefit that you're not guaranteed. You do not want to go in with a sense of entitlement, a sense of rudeness. You should treat the immigration interview with the respect that it deserves. You should act professionally. You should act with a sense of courtesy. It will ultimately serve you in the immigration interview. Those are 5 mistakes to avoid during your immigration interview. Hope you found this information beneficial. If you know anybody that can benefit from this information, feel free to share this video with them. We're all about empowering you with knowledge. Again, thank you so much for tuning in, and I'll see you on the next video. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Don't forget to comment if you have a question about immigration.